Welcome to Aim in Practice, where we talk about life as a practitioner, wellness in general, and what it means to practice. I'm your host, Jess Reynolds, and in this episode, I speak with Max Morin, and we talk about his entrepreneurial journey in the wellness sector. Now, he's got a background in fitness as a natural bodybuilder, and Max's experience as a practitioner led him to start his own franchise and ultimately his own wellness center when he was quite young. And in this episode, he shares his insights of the challenges of entrepreneurship and the intersection of passion and business, and also in finding a sense of fulfillment in what can be a competitive and ever-changing industry. So let's jump in. Well, Max, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me this evening, and we're just going to jump right in the same way I like to, which is hearing a little bit about your story. So I know I'm familiar with it, but to share with the people listening, because you've got an interesting story insofar as you're not currently practicing as a wellness practitioner, which the majority of my guests are. You were, however, and it was a huge part of your life for a long time, right? So could you share that story? We'll start with what got you into wellness in the first place. We'll dig into the entire experience of being in wellness, but I'm kind of looking for the overarching story. What got you into it? And then what eventually got you out of it that led you into what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely, Jess. So the odyssey, if you will, started off. Started my company and my business right out of high school. I saw the educational track wasn't necessarily fit for purpose in at least a few years after high school in my world, and I took on. I kind of jumped into the fitness and wellness sector, and ended up owning a franchise in that for a few years, and did relatively well. And with that development in the development of that business and building that up, there came a point where fitness in its entirety as a industry didn't quite jive with me as the operator, as the practitioner, if you will, as the personal trainer, the physical therapist that ended up being down the road. And it just kind of didn't quite jive, at least the practice of it. And that we can get into later, but there's definitely certain degrees that I didn't find alignment with. And then that morphed into a few other things and ventures. And one of the main ventures was owning a wellness center myself. And so we had a multitude of different paramedical practices operating out of it. And between acupuncture and massage therapists and psychologists, and definitely a myriad of different practices. And we tried to make it a one-stop shop. And it was, again, fairly successful within our first year and a bit, gained a lot of popularity. And within that journey, and that practice, again, it's a lot of jumping feet first, and then understanding what kind of environment you're in after, right? And I think that kind of jives well for a lot of practitioners as well. Jump feet first, absorb the landscape, and say, okay, I don't have necessarily all the tools I need to navigate this landscape, so I need to figure this out. Mm-hmm. And it was a phenomenal learning. It was brilliant for a lot of reasons. And unfortunately, it failed. But fortunately, due to that failure, it led to so many different discoveries and growth phases. And it really provided me some great insights towards the wellness industry as a whole, and at least providing a business perspective. And so from that transition, it then moved forward with the wellness center that put aside. I got a few opportunities in the corporate sector as effectively kind of an area director for a franchise. Similar story to what I had previously to the wellness center. And so kind of the franchise model touched the brick and mortar model, touched the practitioner model. And so kind of had exposure to all these different nuances of business. And within this newer model, again, it was this discovery of a lot of the business acumen providing a lot of customer-centric focus into that, but with a fitness nuance, trying to go back to the roots that I had. And again, didn't find alignment, which we can touch deeper as we move forward. And now currently, the journey has led me to be in the recruitment industry, where it's a lot of business consulting, effectively, for some pretty large companies across Alberta, Canada, and even internationally in the U.S. and so on. So it led to a pretty significant journey and a lot of learning, and hopefully we can provide some perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I mean, I love hearing these stories from virtually everybody I talk to because very rarely are they planned. Like I've only spoken to a very small handful of people who are like, "Oh yeah, when I was 3 years old, I decided I was gonna be an acupuncturist." I'm being a little bit exaggerative, but most of the time when I talk to people, it's this like meandering pathway in and out of the wellness industry to whatever endpoint they're at. What I find really fascinating about your story is, as you said, you got right out of high school, and then your interest, from what it sounds like, was in fitness. So you went in that space; it didn't really fit, but nevertheless, it seems like every single step of the journey there was almost like a magnetic draw to business, like being a franchise owner or a clinic owner, or now what you do is work with businesses. So can we maybe explore that a little bit? Like, does that have anything to do with the what you're saying now? It wasn't quite a right fit, or how does that all work?
So when we look at when I was when I was a personal trainer, and it was on a one-on-one basis, a lot of my fundamentals, and we've talked about this in the past, is uncovering the why for the customer or the client or the patient, whatever the end result is. And so when you go to the why for your client, so you now have signed a new client for 6 months, for a year, potentially even some for 3 to 5 years for longer term commitments. The why is I want to look better, I want to feel better, usually, which is a great, at least the feel better piece, but the look better, and I want to impress somebody else. So already I struggle with that concept, because the intrinsic value of simply that why is I want to be perceived optically better, so that other people could potentially appreciate me, or I get greater validation, or I could be considered an equal, or within the external side. That I struggled with, and the why, to try to solve the why externally from them. So now I'm here trying to solve your why, which is trying to make you feel better about yourself, so that other people can see you differently. And that's a very tough solution to solve. From a business perspective, how do you solve that? It's intangible, right? You have
Hmm.
this ethereal, again, intangible aspect to it, where I want you to make me look better, and so that I can potentially get a better girlfriend or my wife to to spend some more time with me in the evenings.
Hmm.
It's not sustainable. It's not fundamental, and psychologically, it's pretty detrimental when it's simply for a simple need like that. So again, the alignment was really skewed in that way, and the fitness industry, oftentimes, if the why is for that, I just don't find alignment. For me, my fitness
Yeah.
journey took me where I was a natural bodybuilder. I've gone through and competed internationally. That was for a business perspective. I wanted to do that as kind of a repertoire, because I wanted some accreditations and potentially some nice little numbers. But really, it was nothing for the judges, or it wasn't for any admiration that I was seeking. It was simply for an end result that I knew was part of the journey that I was taking. And for me, I still consider it my church, and the gym is so crucial for me. And then the journey beyond that, how business even progressed further, was the lack of alignment, where you start to explore the wellness center, but also wellness industry as a whole, which we can happily get into
Hmm.
and pick apart, if you will.
Yeah, there's a lot to pick apart in the wellness industry. I mean, yeah, we have gone down this road a few times, but I think it's worth investigating this idea of the wellness industry, or the wellness business, and I feel that conversation is so important, because the very vast majority of practitioners get into it as first and foremost a practitioner. They get into wellness stop, right? When in reality, they're getting into the wellness industry. It is a business. It is an industry. And as a business and industry, there's rules to it, there's stigma to it, there's certainly a culture to it. And without learning those rules and identifying the culture, it's easy to, my experience, either A, get completely lost, or B, feel like something's wrong, like this internal sense of like something doesn't fit, or just your business fails because you don't realize that you have to integrate yourself into this industry, right? So let's do that. Let's pick apart this industry of wellness. Um, I think
Yeah.
we'll start on a positive note because that'll only take a
Okay.
minute or two, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like what in
Yeah,
your
yeah,
experience, having
yeah,
been a practitioner, having
completely.
done all the things,
Yeah,
own the businesses,
yeah,
what's the good stuff in the wellness business, in the wellness
absolutely.
industry?
Yeah, completely. So the good stuff is pretty clear. When you're a competent practitioner and you have a phenomenal network of really complementing ideologies and other practitioners, and your network's pretty well off, you're able to really address pain, usually at the root cause, which pain is a pretty intense symptom and a why that a lot of people chronically or acutely deal with. And that's a pretty potent why for the most part. And so, again, the positive aspect of where the industry takes you is that you have these resources where you can actively, fundamentally treat and address someone's pain, symptomology from either you're looking at autoimmune or any different symptom. We have the resources as a practitioner to address most of them across the board, which is hugely impactful and beautiful. Like I'm a huge proponent of knowing when to see a chiropractor, of knowing when to see a massage therapist, of knowing when to see a nutritionist or a holistic nutritionist or so on, and a psychologist. It's knowing when to do and use those resources, and they're incredibly valuable for so many millions and millions of people. And so there's the intrinsic values that huge resources across the board that effectively gives us a menu of I have this symptom, where do I go? I can go see the chiro for my neck, for my hips, for my knees, depending on whatever the case is, and have it addressed, which is brilliant. 100 years ago, it's a bit different. You'd go see one or two individuals that were told to be the specialists in a certain space and hope that they can address it. But the amalgamation of information and knowledge that has been passed down for centuries and millennia in some cases, it's astonishing and hugely valuable for our time in our industry now.
So with that, that's the good stuff. I agree, like it is beautiful that we are in an age in which there is such accessibility to all of these different modalities. So now let's pick the industry apart a little bit, and perhaps we can come at it from the perspective of let's talk about it maybe as outsiders. Like we've both been insiders, but as an outsider now, as a businessman who is steeped in the world of business, let's look at the wellness industry and kind of identify maybe where it's dysfunctional or what the issues might be within the industry.
So when we go back to the why, which we opened the discussion with, the why of okay, now I'm an individual. Pick my avatar. I have acute neck pain, and I have say ankle issues due to the running that I've been doing. These are acute issues, and I've associated a level subconsciously to how much emphasis I need to address this. And oftentimes the neck pain will be kind of probably, let's say, low 2 to 3 within a scale 1 to 10. And the knee pain, only when I'm running is it bothering me. So again, the pain, depending on each individual person, some people have high tolerance to pain, and that value of having pain is so minimal that they won't even get it addressed in the first place. So when we look at it from an industry across the board, and we look at the average consumer to health and wellness, the average patient, the average client, is the why is often really small, and the why isn't substantial enough to be sustainable as a long-term financial resource to the practitioner. So we look at it from I'm a chiropractor, and my patient comes to me. They have these X symptoms, and I'm really good at what I do, so I only need to see them maybe once a week to potentially every 2 weeks. So now I've created a revenue model for myself where this individual is going to pay me $45, $55 for this 15-minute interaction. because you're basing it on your time, right? So now the transaction is time for what they perceive to be pain relief. So then you're trying to equate this financial value of time to pain relief, and that equates the practitioner a small amount of $45 to $50. That amount is not sustainable. It's not going to be conducive to this long-term strategy for in the third quarter or the fourth quarter of their financial plan, because when that practitioner has effectively healed that person, if they're really good at it, then that person has no need. And we keep pushing the maintenance piece to it. But maintenance is not a strong enough why. Like if I'm feeling good, I'm not thinking of going to see the chiropractor. I'm not thinking of going to see the massage therapist. The why isn't strong enough. The pain indicator isn't triggering my brain to say, I need to go have this dealt with. So then finances start to decline. So then you're dealing with this constant treadmill of I need to see more and more and more people. And I'm picking on the chiropractors because it's a constant cycle for them in that way. When you look at massage therapists, sometimes it's even worse, because on the massage side, you're seeing massage is a different industry, as I'm sure everyone knows. You can deal with it from the therapeutic side or often the relaxation side, and then you get the nuances of everything else. And oftentimes when you come to relaxation, well, I have benefits and my benefits allocate for $500 a year. I will happily spend that on relaxation or therapeutic because I have $500 of benefits that my companies pay for. Once that is depleted, though, my value and my why isn't strong enough to pay out of pocket. Like, it's a brilliant experience. I might go once or twice. So that person might be going every 2 months to see potentially the same person. But again, we're dealing with a saturated market. If I want a massage therapist, I'm going to go based on convenience, because really my why is so minimal. Like, really, why do I need to it? I want to feel good for a certain degree at time, relax as much as I can, calm my nervous system. So I'll go see a massage therapist that is close. But if I'm traveling, I'll go find somebody else. So there's no loyalty. There's no loyalty program to it unless you're so phenomenally good and you've addressed a why potentially previously to that patient that was so astronomically massive that then you bought loyalty. But for the general population, that loyalty doesn't come with those first two interactions. It's so minimal. And then you look at acupuncture, the buy-in, there's always a huge stigma, particularly in Western culture, around acupuncture. And a lot of people still have a tremendous amount of aversion to it, or even lack of education or knowledge to it. So now you're looking at an industry that is already handicapped almost in that way, where it's at a deficit comparatively to some of the more Westernly known practices. And acupuncture is brilliant and treats a myriad of different things on different levels, from neurological to digestive to endocrine to everything. But then you're dealing with a general practice. And because we have the lack of knowledge generally from the population to understand this practice, and then how generalized it ends up being, well, I can treat that. Oh yeah, I can treat that. I can treat that. It again dilutes the value because we don't understand really what it does. And so you look at the wellness industry, and I'm again, chiro, massage, acupuncture, then we can get potentially into other things, but usually picking on these three key practices, the general population's why, to conclude this, is not strong enough to justify the usage of it long term, if it's not convenient. And then for the practitioner, thus creating a model for themselves from a business perspective that is extremely hard to sustain. Very, very hard to sustain, where my transaction and the hourly rate that I end up doing or charging, say it's $100 an hour for an hour, but I'm only taking 60% if I'm working out of a clinic. So now I'm already splitting and I'm losing some overhead on that. So as a contractor that's supposed to be running my own business, I'm already significantly more of at a loss, and particularly when you're early stages. But we can get into that and those nuances. But I think it is a very difficult industry to sustain, and those that do sustain it are phenomenal at what they do, and they are very good. But there's a business acumen that came with that allowed them to have that sustainability in their career.
I mean, you're painting a pretty damn bleak picture, my friend. But I think
Yeah.
it's super important because what you just laid out on the table is in fact the reality that
Hmm.
very few practitioners are maybe not even willing, just simply
Hmm.
aware of, because it is nuanced and it takes a pretty 30,000 foot view to actually see these issues. So just so I can make sure I understand your perception of what the issue is here is, regardless of which one of these modalities we pick at, and we could again open up the scope to virtually all of them, but the fact is the wellness world is based around people seeking practitioners because they have a problem, with a small exception, and it might not even be an exception, and that's those seeking massage therapy or even acupuncture strictly for relaxation purposes. But maybe then the problem might be that they want to relax. Nevertheless, I actually like to keep those separate because that is a little bit more sustainable, I think. So let's talk about the majority of wellness practitioners who are in this business because they are attempting to fix their clients' problems. And this is a big thing I talk about a lot, so I'm really glad that you brought it up. Is, what is the client's why? And the moment you are either not perfectly satisfying the why they're there, or you actually do satisfy, you lose your client, which means your career is 25% actually treating, 75% trying to figure out how the heck to get people in the door. That's marketing, right? With a little bit of sales in there, but mostly marketing. So we've identified a pretty significant problem insofar as we train practitioners to be practitioners, not marketers, when in reality, a good part of sustaining a business is marketing. That's problem A. And then problem B is simply being aware of the fact that there is a lack of sustainability inherent within the wellness industry. So, with that being said, what do you see as a potential solution to this?
Hmm. So when we look at the depth, I'm going to paint a picture and we'll achieve the solution at the end. So I want to paint a picture as to what people embark in their journey. So speaking to the audience, to whoever's watching, they've gone through years of schooling, grueling hours in that time, and when they leave, and they have a great resource, and the education is often very, very well done, depending on where they went to school. And then you graduate and you have this phenomenal tool in front of you. But then comes this thing, is that this tool is fairly ubiquitous. And ubiquitous is a pretty hyperbolic term, but to other massage therapists, or say to other acupuncturists, your tool is identical to others. But usually, due to the percentage of people that graduate, uh, you have a bit of a leg up, but then you already have people that are 4, 5, 6, 7 years in practicing, and they've already built their name. And now, so I'm here. I have let's pick. I'm a RMT now, and I've done my 3,000 hours, and I've gone above and beyond, and I'm really proud of it instead of my 22. So now, 3,000 hour massage therapist. What do? I go to Massage Heights if you're in Canada, or go to a massage clinic, or I go to more of a holistic clinic where I am effectively very, very new to the industry. I am not known to anybody except my family and my friends. I now have this resource where a lot of other people do it, and more than likely my friends and my family are already seeing, or have already seen, other massage therapists and are already pretty content with them. So now I have to start working on my skills. I might have 3,000 hours to my belt, but that doesn't necessarily equate to life experience in the business world. Navigating clients, navigating client issues, navigating the environment within a clinic with other practitioners involved. There's all these other nuances that pile on. So I'm at this stage where I'm a new practitioner. I'm trying to gain clientele and traction. I'm trying to build a name for myself. And the best way to do that is deliver phenomenal service, or try to deliver a better service than the others. And that's hard to do. That in itself is difficult to do. To be a standalone practitioner where that my client or my patients left and they said, that was one of the best massages I've ever had. And to do that, and within your first years of practice, is a feat in itself. Now, say you've achieved that feat. Now I'm giving the people the results that they want, and now they're coming to me and they're giving me referrals. because now the word is getting out. And because I'm at a clinic and I might be doing some social media, just slightly promoting myself. But again, I'm in a gigantic ocean with millions of other fish that are doing the same thing. How do I stand alone? So I'm really, really focusing on my practice. I got to do a great service, The better my service, the better the return. And that works to an extent. And that extent is once I've effectively fulfilled and my name's built and I have to achieve that, it's very small. But on the other side, if for whatever reason, my consistency and my sustainability, if I get sore, if I get injured, immediately my service quality has dropped. My one thing that I have ensured my sustainability is my ability to perform. If I can't perform, my finances will deteriorate. I can't take 2 to 3 weeks on holidays. I don't get paid leave, depending on the clinic where you're at. My body is now my tool, and I have to take care of it. And if I deteriorate that, I don't have a sustainable model moving forward. So that's painting, again, it's a realistic, I try to take a realistic view at everything, but that's a realistic snapshot as to what I would say the average RMT has to deal with and face with. Now, what is the solution? When we look at the market and we look at a lot of some pretty prolific changes in technology and in some of the payment systems that are effective and pretty predominant in our world now, is we see a subscription model. And I know of a few clinics in Calgary that operate on a subscription model. It is very high end. It's upwards of $5,000 a year sometimes to have access to all the practitioners. Those practitioners are paid on a salary basis. So that's an entirely different story in itself. But when you look at it as a solution, how is it a means to create loyalty, to create consistency for that return for that client or the customer to continuously come back and see the value in what you provide? So what I had done in my clinic, which was pretty successful, as I created a methodology and I created a development which was called foundational movement therapy, and it was on biomechanics and really understanding the pulley systems of tissues, the agonistic, the antagonistic, and so on. But what I would do is I would create a program for them at the beginning. This was, again, taking it from the personal training aspect, which very few practitioners try to do. They push it, but it's not, from what I've experienced, it's not done as efficiently as it could be. So then I'd sit down with the client after their first interaction, and the first interaction there has to be value provided. And the value provided is I would have had to remove a pretty significant degree of their pain or their why, satisfying their why. And if I've satisfied their why, then I can go into the sale of my pitch of my service, which is, listen, within this time, these are the issues that you're currently dealing with, 1, 2, 3. Within this time, I would be able to address it within, say, a 6 to 12 session period. More likely, based on your chronic or acute symptomatology, we're looking at probably 12 sessions. Now, we have to do a commitment, because if you're committed to this as much as I'm committed to you, and you're committed to addressing your pain, and if you believe in what I've done thus far, then we have to create a partnership. And that partnership is crucial. So in this partnership, there could be a point where you offer a split service fee where there is, say, for the entire package, it's $100 for the 12 sessions. So say $1,200, and you offer a bit of a discount. Doesn't have to be potentially one session, potentially free. But in doing that, you've secured 3 payments or 1 large payment right off the front. You then have this client that is committed to seeing you for the term, and they're now on a retainer, where they're effectively, they've put in their money and they've moved forward with that. So that's one larger model. Once that's complete, the 12 sessions, and they've seen the success and you've effectively treated them relatively well, where they have little to no pain left, then you can try to move into the maintenance phase. But here's the thing about maintenance phase, again, going back to my previous point, when you don't have pain, you don't think about it, and then the value of going to see somebody dilutes immensely. So then
Mm-hmm.
the alternative to a solution to potentially that is a subscription model. So within the time is depending on if the clinic allows you to do this, and this is, again, comes into more issues within the industry, is that you are subservient to whatever the clinic and the clinic owners say. As a clinic owner, I understand that my mandates were often rural, and we wanted to run it a certain way. So then the clients had the practitioners had to abide by those rules, which makes it very difficult for when you're a practitioner, because then you're not given the flexibility or the power to build a business effectively your way. And again, this goes back to maybe more of a negative nuance, is that you're grilled into a rut as a practitioner, and you have to abide by these rules, and you have to abide by them well, to effectively float on water. Otherwise, it's not going to jive between the clinic or the practitioner. So then a subscription model is great, where you can potentially offer for $300, $400 a month if they're willing to pay it, which traditionally, when you look at corporate, and depending on the acuity, the degree of pain that they're dealing with, then you got them on a lower rate. They're seeing you maybe 2 to 3 times a month. You have a bit more consistency, but they're seeing you for the year. And so
Mm-hmm.
you're getting them on a longer term. You're shortening the amount that they're having to pay. But this is, again, being innovative within the industry. And again, something that I struggle with, Jess, and again, more things that are popping up, is that the model that we play in with the health and wellness industry, it's outdated. It's a model that has
Mm-hmm.
been used for the last, since the 50s and the 60s. The model has been effectively just run dry, and we're pushing the same mandates, the same tactics, but we're not innovating. When we look at technology is innovating. We're looking at new payment systems, new strategies, new ways to engage our audience and engage potential customers and clients. We're living in an industry now where I'm now in 2023, new graduate, and I'm still trying to push the Instagram. I'm pushing ads as much as I can. I'm trying to network within my community, and developing some relationships with other practitioners in different modalities to try to get some referrals. But from a sustainability perspective, then you're at a loss. You're back on the windmill, right? It never ends up stopping, right? And so it's trying to get yourself off of that, because as a contractor, you have to create again, sustainability being the word, but you have to create an income stream that is sustainable for you. And it's to be creative, and it's to be innovative, and to find ways to make it work, and not just saying, well, this is how it's been done, and this is the way that I have to do it. Well, it's very difficult to abide by that if you're going to play the rules like everybody else. Well, you're going to get the results that everyone else is getting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. There's a lot of different directions we can take that in, but I would like to again briefly summarize it, kind of try and tie this idea together, because what I heard you saying is kind of, we could break it down into a couple steps. And step number one is you've graduated. Step one is master your craft, just period. That's step number one. And the technical skill of the craft, using your word, which I like, is relatively ubiquitous. Like when you graduate school, quite frankly, you might be good, but you're nothing special. To become special, to become a master of your craft, in my experience, doesn't necessarily mean you gather another 50 different techniques. It means you get really damn good at one or two techniques. That's step one. Step two, then, from what I heard you say, is when you're in a room with a client, your number one priority is to provide as much value as possible. And I use that word because it's like, it's not just the massage. Yes, you could provide an amazing massage, but again, that's relative. I shouldn't even say relative. That's actually quite hard to come by. But even so, people can get a really good massage at a bunch of different clinics. So in order to provide value, it's what else are you doing in the treatment room in order to really up the perceived value. So we've got step one, step two. Those are the basics. And I think if people would just focus on those two, that would take them a long way. But in order to build a business to the point where it is sustainable, and we're not wondering, where is my next paycheck coming from? Or am I going to make $500 this month or $5,000 this month? Who knows? The next step then is to talk about the structure of income, which, according to what you were saying, is to switch from this time for dollars model, which is okay, right? Well, I do want to make a point on that in a moment, to switch to potentially some other more updated model of selling these services, which would be a subscription model, right? Is that kind of a good summary of what you're saying? Yeah.
I think it's brilliant. Yeah, no, it sums it
Yeah.
up precisely well, and exactly touching on to the point. The Entrepreneurial Myth, the E-Myth, the book, which
Yeah.
highly
Brilliant book.
recommend it. Brilliant book.
10 out of 10.
Exact
Yeah.
10 out of 10. I've read it multiple times, and it's to exactly that. It's finding what operates well, but then adding what needs to be added to really make that service special. Because the service, for the most part, is going to be, again, it's going to be the former, and it's going to be like everyone else. But if you can remember the last treatment, and everyone takes their notes and they take their clinic notes and they have an idea as to what's going on. But if you have a methodology or a method that can amplify the way that the patient not only feels seen, heard, and they've felt like they've been addressed, but in a way that's new, and you don't necessarily need something that's extravagant, but just something that makes that patient feel seen in a way that is different, but different good. It's tough, and I don't know if I have the solution for that, but it takes the innovative problem solvers that are willing to step out the box. But exactly, you said it perfectly.
Yeah, I think so. I think like that's an individual based thing. I mean, in business, you call it your USP, right? Your unique selling proposition, which by its very nature is unique. So everybody should be different. Now, I think those two skills are the foundation. And the little tangent I wanted to make is I think in the wellness industry, if an individual is just happy as a clam being a contractor, which I know a fair number of practitioners who just love it. They work at the same clinic, they've worked for the last 15 years, they're happy as can be because they go to work, they deliver amazing value, they make a relatively steady income. Maybe it fluctuates a little up, a little down with the season, time of year, but relatively stable. Brilliant. And if anybody listening, if that's you, you're nailing it, like continue. But then there's this other group of practitioners, right? Those of us who are just like, damn it, nobody's taking 40% of my paycheck. I want to do this myself. You're telling me that I have to work these hours? Well, there's like this group of us who just don't do well being under somebody else's rule or working from a different clinic, right? So then there's two paths I see that those individuals can take. They can become the solo practitioner, whether they do mobile or they work out of their house or whatever it is, where they get to set the rules. Or, and I don't really want to talk about that one because it's relatively simple and close enough to the contractor model. Or the second route is you become a clinic owner. You open up a brick and mortar business. And this is a fundamental switch because I believe the moment a practitioner makes that decision, their primary role switches from, using the E-Myth terms, the technician to the entrepreneur, potentially the manager. And I think this is where a big problem exists, is because those who decide to go the I'm going to start a business model and they think they're going to maintain being a practitioner, things fall apart very quickly because while I would love to say these two mentalities jive, the reality is the loving, caring, empathetic, compassionate practitioner, which is what made you so damn successful, simply isn't the same mentality that's required in order to build a successful business. So now I want to talk to you about this. You're a wellness practitioner who's about to open a clinic. And the first place I actually want to go down is something that you said very early on in our discussion when you were doing this high level overview of your kind of career trajectory, is you were talking about your clinic, right? Your clinic that had a whole bunch of different practitioners. And then you said, and it eventually ended up failing. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about failure in business, primarily to normalize it, to simply state how unbelievably normal it is. Is it fun? Absolutely not, but it's super normal. So can we talk about that experience of yours, the kind of collapse or the end of your business?
Yeah. So the collapse, again. I'll try to paint some context. I got exactly to your point. I got fairly good at what I did, where I could identify in a unique way certain problems, chronic or acute, and address them fairly well. And so I became the practitioner. And the practitioner led me for a few years, where I treated a few hundred different people, and it boded well. Then the opportunity came where to open a clinic, where vacancy came, and kind of life shows up at your door and says, okay, this is an opportunity. Will you be walking through this door? And we chose yes. And this was me and my partner at the time, and we chose to walk through the door. And so we opened this clinic, and it was wonderful. It was a brilliant experience. The development, the excitement, the construction piece. It was kind of this whole birthing process, which was very unique, and I cherish the moment of that development. The feelings are very, very, very unique. And so then comes, exactly to your point, comes this point of the shift happens, and then I'm now a business owner. Now I'm reliable for other people. We had a few employees. We had many different contractors in our clinic. So then you become responsible for them. So not only are you just looking at from the view of my own practice that I need to sustain, but now my practice also needs to sustain other people, but I also need to look at it from a business perspective. So I have to look at it from the entrepreneurial view versus the technician view versus the manager view, but I also have to look at it from all different lenses, which is a task in itself. And not everyone, you can't be trained into it. Like you can go and get your MBA and get a bachelor's degree in business and learn that process. And that's a great leg up. I recommend it. But when you jump into it, it is a learning, you're drinking through the fire hose. And so what ended up happening through my clinic at the time, there was a lot of mistakes that happened, either through relationships, through individuals that we chose to take on, through individuals that we didn't choose to take on that would have been very lucrative, but also it would have created a really great culture. And that was a big thing that we put in our clinic, was that we wanted an incredible environment, and that's what we prioritized, an incredible environment culturally. And and we achieved that. But we achieved it initially, but it was an ever morphing target that just constantly seemed to change, and based on a new individual, the dynamic kind of shifted. So you had to kind of manage that, but then you're also managing the optics. So then you're doing the marketing, you're running the operations, you're doing payroll, you're doing business development with other clinics, with other practitioners. So it's this constant day-to-day grind, but it's enjoyable. A lot of the entrepreneurs out there that are clinic owners, I have a huge amount of respect, and only respect to them. So then came the failure of the piece, and there came points of distraction. And I'm more on the entrepreneurial side, and my partner at the time was very much the operator. So they were the technician, and the operator. And when you have these two personalities, where you have the entrepreneur and then you have the technician only sees kind of the day to day. The entrepreneur, we tend to see that 2,000-foot journey. I had the luxury of also experiencing what had to happen on the technician side as the operator side. So you're kind of navigating these nuances. So there came a clash with the perspectives that we brought forward, and we ended up making a few decisions that were not beneficial to us. And it came to where partnerships are incredibly fragile things, particularly in business, because perspectives often don't align, and that's why it's so easy. You're running your own business because you can do what you want, but then you have to really be at a point of diligence where you're willing to lose a lot of battles. And sometimes I chose not to fight certain battles, and I probably should have fought more battles. And battles that I should have fought versus battles I just decided to let go definitely caused larger strife in the business. From a financial perspective, then it also came point where there was probably some complacency, and because there was this constant battle internally from a cultural perspective, it made it less fun. The journey, that birthing process, where that creativity and the development, it started becoming more tedious. And there comes a point where you have these clashing personalities that are, one person sees a certain solution to a different business problem, and then you see a different one, and it ends up being where trying to solve the problems end up being more challenging than the problem itself. And that's where we ended up being, because the problems weren't these gargantuan things that we had to overcome. They're quite simple problems, but
They're business problems.
Exactly. Just simple business problems. And all business problems are is just trying to achieve a solution to that business problem. And that I found I was relatively good at. But with clashing personalities and clashing perspectives, we'd have practitioners come in and say, "Oh, I don't want this new practitioner to come in, or I want to move our entire clinic onto 16th Avenue because I think we're going to get more foot traffic from there." You obviously there's a degree of compromise that happens, and you take everything with a grain of salt. But then when you have your partner who owns the business just as much as you do, and they push back on certain things that you don't agree with, it ends up being an exhaustive process. And at the time, through that exhaustive process, I tried to create a new track, so a business arm for the existing clinic. And in creating that business arm, I got captivated in it. I created actually a practitioner manual, and then it ended up being a textbook, which was 240 pages long, and then I ended up illustrating all of it and then writing it. So it started to captivate me in that way because I started to find the enjoyment in it again, because I started to realize how much little enjoyment I had on the other side that was kind of taken away. So it was the start of the end was probably there, where the focus of growing this business that was sustainable and achieving the problems, it just became navigating the problem, the navigating what the other people saw their solutions to the problem being, and that it was very incohesive. Like the structure, what I would recommend is having one person making most of the decisions, and that person being hopefully the most business competent, and then trusting that person, but also taking insight and being consultative and collaborative within the clinic itself, where you can still drive that growth, but partnering with an existing practitioner, someone who's only done as a practitioner, is difficult because they have that trouble seeing it from a 2,000-foot view. They see it exactly from the problem that sees them in their face, as the operator, as the technician, which it's a great perspective when you want it to see kind of from the customer-centric view. But also from a business strategy view, it tends to lack or to wane. So that was kind of the beginning to the end. I started to lose motivation in it. I started being complacent myself and stopped putting as much energy into it. And then effectively coming up to our third year, first year we were almost profitable. Like it was really well done. And then as the conflicts grew, the drive for me actually declined significantly. I was burnt out by the time I was 20. I think it was 24, 25. I probably burnt out significantly. I'd say 3 or 4 times, like where you're probably taking 2 weeks in bed, like not being able to function, kind of. So
That's
you're
that's
looking,
pretty young to
yeah,
be business burnt out.
yeah. And I lived a life where I was always very, very active, and right after high school, as I said, I started my business. But I was also incredibly physically active. I was being scouted to play with the university dinos on the football team, so I'd be there at 5 a.m. Every day to try to do that. In addition, and then you're trying to get your workouts in, and then you're seeing your patients and your clients on the side to do your workouts. So it was a lot, and then the business just burnt out. Like I'm about roughly 240 pounds right now, and very not out of shape by any means. But I was probably during my clinic, I was probably 175, 180 pounds. So like really significant difference, because the stress is so high, and then you're dealing with the financial stress, and then you're dealing with the lack of your wellness. Like your wellness takes the first hit. Like I say this probably too much as a stereotype, but if you own a wellness clinic, your health will take the hit on the first batch. Like your health will be the first thing to go when you own a health and wellness clinic, which is a beautiful irony. I'm sure it's poetic.
Yeah, yeah, it is, and it's so unbelievably true. And I'm saddened to hear your story because you put your heart and soul in this business and it ended up failing. However, I'm also grateful that you have proven a point that I make all the time, and it's the saying that some people may have heard, common saying: the only ship guaranteed to sink is a partnership. Because man, they are hard to sustain. I mean, that's like from that story. that you just said, that's the big lesson I got. It's like, if you want to start a wellness business, and I say the same thing, like, yeah, sure, you can do a partnership, but I strongly discourage it. Because when starting a business, not only do you have a mountain of business things to deal with, just a million decisions and choices to make in every single day, from literally how many ply the toilet paper is going to be, because that stuff adds up, all the way to what split are you going to do in navigating contracts. Like, that's huge. And then on top of it, having interrelational dynamics to deal with. And then on top of that, doing that with somebody that you know, be it a significant other or a friend, which is what most partnerships are. It's like, now you got baggage. Oh, no. I say avoid partnerships at all costs. It's deadly.
Completely. Oh, 100%. And then you take it home with you, or it's just
Mhm.
so hard to get away with it. And then you have
Yeah.
nothing left. Your psychology ends up being zero. So it is exactly that. It was a sinking ship for a
Yeah.
long time, and to have that mental fortitude is one thing, to be able to sustain those storms. But you need, again, sustainability. You need calm seas. You can't have
Mhm.
constant rocking tides that are coming to rock the ship every day. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to get seasick. It's not. You won't handle it. The ship will get wrecked. It's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it all right if I ask you maybe a little bit more of a personal question? And it's totally okay to
Always.
say no. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Over the time I've gotten to know you, and I, of course, I really enjoy observing minute details of people's behavior and how they speak and
Mhm.
facial expressions and everything. But when I hear you talk about what you're doing now, and you talk about the dogs, and you talk about your partner, you get this like little line up here at the top of your eyes where it's like, I can see your
Yeah.
soul being like, bliss is
Yeah.
blissful. And
Yes.
pretty much every single
Yes.
time we end up talking about wellness or health or the industry
Hmm.
that you were in, it's like I see your whole countenance kind of drop. So the question that I want to ask
Yeah.
is were you ever in love with the wellness industry? Like, I mean,
Mm.
really, truly,
Yeah.
that soul
Hmm.
smile love with the wellness
Yeah.
industry?
Phenomenal question. So this was something that obviously a lot of contemplation. So I was a business person first, right? So when you go into a business, from a business perspective, you always tend to look at things from a business perspective. And business is not personal. Business is strategic. Business can be cutthroat. Business is not about emotions, right? And for me, it was always like the strategies, problem solving, solution solving. It was hard for me to find love within an industry that innately, like for a lot of people that do it, they find it because they want to take care of people like first, and that's maybe a larger generalization, but I think it rings true to most.
It's
Um,
fair. Yeah.
right, and I think for most people they want to take care of other people, and they can get paid doing it, so they see kind of this pro environment where there's only but good things. Um, so for me, the aspect of it started to, like, again, when things got really tough within the business, and I couldn't navigate the other problems. Like, I didn't love the industry enough to do it. It's an industry that is cutthroat, and if you don't have enough cutthroat people, or you start to wane yourself, if you don't have that resilience to be able to stick into that cutthroat industry, you will get chewed out 100%. And
Yeah.
it's an industry that there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of ego involved. Uh, you're doing something wrong, they're doing it better in some degree, and so there's a lot of comparison. You're being judged in a lot of different ways. So it's hard to find this state of just peace, right, where you can do your business and feel good about it, without worrying about finances, without worrying about your competitors, without worrying. It's a lot. So for me, yeah,
Yeah.
the industry potentially was fun, enjoyable, creative. Like, I enjoyed treating certain people. But again, going back to the very beginning of our discussion here, is that the why for me, I dislike the aspect of once I find someone's why, I am extremely judgmental, and my judgment comes from a place of, if you're solely doing it for again, for the optics of how other people perceive you, or you're only doing it for if the reason for me, in my view, is not strong enough, and I'm happy to help you, I'm happy to treat you, and I'll make your pain go away. But if you don't really care about the result, or you're doing it for somebody else, it's tough. So again, you have this kind of this layered stack where it's already pretty tough industry, but then it's not as rewarding as you initially thought. Yeah, it tends to kind of leave some holes in you, and you're just kind of like, I'll happily walk away from it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I asked that question not only because it's just been an observation that I've had in our
Mm-hmm.
interactions, but I see it, I see it unfortunately often in this industry,
Mm-hmm.
these two different dynamics. Is you get
Mm-hmm.
the individual who gets into the wellness business because they see it as a good business opportunity and they're
Mm-hmm.
more business minded, but they don't love the industry. And unfortunately, it
Mm-hmm.
is one of those industries that requires love. It does require
Yep.
the true love of it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you get those, which it really doesn't work, right?
Right.
And it even goes down to the practitioner level, not even just the like opening a clinic. It's like if you get a
Mm-hmm.
massage therapist who really doesn't love doing it, they're gonna hit year three and then
Yep.
be not just burnt out, but just be soul sucked dry, right? But then you
Yep.
get this other avenue, right? And you get the practitioner who's in it and they're like, this is my
Mm-hmm.
life. This is all I want to do
Yep.
with my life. And I'm so happy
Yep.
and I want to share this and I want to start a
Yep.
business doing it. And then they don't have the business acumen. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, there's
Yep.
this unfortunate disconnect between
Mm-hmm.
capabilities and capacities. Now that being
Completely.
said, is I have met a fortunately a fairly large number of practitioners who are also successful business owners. And man,
Mm-hmm.
that combination, if there's an individual who can strike that balance, ooh, look out. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is an amazing thing to behold. But I think unfortunately it's very common for a lot of people to just get in the treadmill
Mm-hmm.
of all the different treadmills we've talked about. I think we've hit three different treadmills in this conversation,
Yep.
right? Yeah. So
Yep.
I want to summarize that thought by just
Yep.
saying to anybody listening is like we talked about the steps. It's like step go to one, go to school. Step two, perfect your craft. Step three, get back. I think maybe let's back up even one step. Step zero, figure out if you love what you're doing. Like figure out if you
Mm-hmm.
love it. If you're in
Yep.
love with the industry that you're about to invest your entire life in, and if
Mm-hmm.
you're not in love with it,
Yep.
maybe it's not the industry for you. I don't know.
Yep. And I agree. I completely agree. I have, so I had an upbringing that was fairly fortunate to me because I was a sports guy, and my dad would show me and introduce me to different sports every few years, right? So you start off soccer, and then you move to hockey, or then you start skateboarding, and then it's tennis, and then you start playing everything, and then you get pretty good at everything. But then, in a sense, you start to really know what you like and you don't like, and then
Mm,
what that had led me to do in my career, which was great, was that by the time that I started choosing the path of being an entrepreneur, like by the time I was 19, 18, 19, I had already gone to pilot school. Like I thought I needed to be a pilot. And so I put in a few hours. My father-in-law, sorry, my stepfather was a retired pilot. He used to fly 777, and both my other parents were in the airline industry, and so I thought maybe I needed to be in the airline industry. And then I gave it a shot, and it definitely was not right for me. And as we can see in the existing economy and with what's happening now with a few of the big names, very good choice on my part. But you definitely need to explore it, and a lot of people jump in, and this goes for relationships too. And without getting too much on a tangent, like oftentimes you commit to somebody, but is that relationship really cohesive, and is it going to be the good thing for you down the road because you just want it now? So it's doing a lot of that soul searching, sitting with it, and exploring. Am I happy doing this? And if you're not happy within the first few months, and then it turns into a couple of years, like get out. It's not worth it.
mhm. Yeah.
But if you do, absolutely push through, drive it, and enjoy every moment.
Yeah. 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 So as we draw our conversation to close, I would like to ask you the question that I ask pretty much everybody. Well, in fact,
Yeah.
everybody, and that's in your experience, your quite varied experience. What do you think? What are the characteristics or the qualities, or what makes a practitioner successful?
Mhm. So curiosity is massive. A degree of humility is hugely important. So if you combine curiosity to amplify your existing craft and ensure that you have mastered it, with a degree of humility that you might be better than most, but don't act like you're better than most. And then a degree of a lot of collaboration, like somebody that is extremely collaborative. A lot of practitioners have a scarcity mindset, right? They don't want their patients to see other practitioners. They don't want they don't want even other practitioners that practice the same modality within the same space, because they're worried that they're going to lose that. I would definitely try to find, which is a hard thing to do, but if you can navigate yourself out of a scarcity mindset, meaning a place of abundance, knowing that what you offer is good enough, and what you offer, if done right, is can provide a huge amount of value, and you don't need to play the competition card and don't need to worry about those things. If you feel that you're good enough at what you do, just be okay with that fact. It's enough to worry about what that person is doing and that person is doing and what they're not doing. That becomes exhaustive, and that can be detrimental. So humility, curiosity, and the third piece that I forget to whatever I mentioned just then.
Yeah. So I mean that's a beautiful combination. I think there's curiosity, humility, as well as
Yeah,
confidence. I think those were the three, and that's beautiful.
yeah, yeah.
Well, that's great.
Self confidence. No, yeah.
Self confidence.
Lack of scarcity. Yeah, lack of scarcity, I think.
Beautiful. Well, the perfect place to tie a little bow on our conversation. I sure appreciate chatting with you as always, and this is
Yeah,
great. Thanks.
absolutely. Jess, been a pleasure. Thank you so much for the time.